Hello and welcome to another whiskey review with me, the Whiskey Novice. Thank you for joining me wherein through the process of trying to find distilleries which I've never touched upon, we have made it to Glen Spey. Yes, we have. This one, another Flora and Fauna, so Diageo owned. Let's look at Glen Spey quickly, shall we? Founded in 1878 in Speyside, as I said, a Diageo distillery. This one being the 12-year-old, as usual, 43%, as usual, chill filtered, colour added, like most of the Flora and Fauna series. This one, Glen Spey, the distillery in particular, most of what they're producing, obviously, Diageo owned. I use the term blend fodder, an awful lot of this going into J and B rare. So there you go. That's where this one goes. So this one, Glen Spey, let's just dip in, shall we? That's what we're here for. Beautifully light and creamy. I'm going to repeat what I say an awful lot about not just Flora and Fauna Speyside releases, but a lot of Speyside releases in general. And you know what I'm going to say, honeysuckle, floral, yeah. But you know, it is a lovely creamy. An awful lot of these, you just imagine they must just be ex-bourbon matured. They're a simple whiskey, 12-year-old. Usually, an awful lot of the Flora and Fauna are around that 12-year-old mark. 12-year-old ex-bourbon in most cases, unless they state otherwise. And I don't think I even looked. Yeah. You know, it's quite simply malt Scotch whiskey is what you get. And a little bit of a story about, you know, the area. But look, it's lovely. I sometimes don't like using the terms inoffensive and approachable because inoffensive and approachable because it sounds like a bit of an insult. It's not. In this case, it can actually be a positive. It's not. It's absolutely not an insult. This is inoffensive and approachable in a good way. This is a positive, inoffensive and approachable in that it's just an inviting whiskey. It has all of that lovely sweetness. And when I said about ex-bourbon, you know, there's a really nice caramel-y, what is going on with my voice tonight? There's a nice toffee and vanilla sort of note. Very inviting, usual sort of pear drops, even a hint of. So look, you know, good, sensible whiskey, Speyside, sensible whiskey. Lovely, delicate, sweet, slightly bittersweet arrival on the palate. But once again, lovely and delicate. There's even a nice, really fresh, I'm going to say minty note off it. I mean, it's like when if you've had mint in your mouth, even just a sweet mint candy, and then you take a breath of air and you get that coolness on your palate. This is weird. This is what this is doing. That's the sort of sensation it gives. Delicate, but lovely. Here's the way I'm going to describe this. And this is a bit out of left field because I haven't thought this through at all. But Japanese whiskey. An awful lot of Japanese whiskey. I would describe this, if I was having this blind, I would have said it's either A Speyside, or B, Japanese. One of the sort of Nika, maybe Yoichi or Miyagiki or something like that, in that it's delicate, but each individual, if you break this down into those little parts, and in this case there's not a lot of those parts. Honey, once again, yeah, vanilla, yeah, caramel, yeah. Not a lot of mad notes going on, really big, bold, standout notes, but each one of those notes, as few as there may be, are still bold. I genuinely do not think there's a bad Flora and Fauna on the market. But I've said it quite often that they're just quite samey. They are very, very similar. The finish in this, sort of medium length, and it is, yet again, pleasant. It's all of that, that nice bright lightness still goes on in there. And, not a damn thing wrong with it. There may be one issue. This is sort of 60 to 65 pounds a bottle. It's a bit pricey for a 12-year-old that's, nice, inoffensive and approachable, in my opinion. Even £10 less would make this a better whiskey, I think. But yet again, not much wrong with it, apart from maybe that price a bit. So let's add a little water. So it's had some water. It's had some, importantly, time. How do we get on now? Well, a little more nutty on the nose. Certainly almonds. Yeah, sweet almonds are popping up there now. Added in with everything that was going on before. So that's a nice little addition. It doesn't like water much, certainly on the palate. I didn't add an awful lot of water. I've had other of these Flora and Fauna releases which have stood up to water much better. I think there's a very narrow tipping point on this one, and I think a little drop of water just pushes it over the edge. It just all feels a little bland. Weirdly, it's the palate that feels bland. The finish remains. The finish actually does not change an awful lot. If anything, there's actually quite a nice, that I said about it being fresh in the finish. There's even a deep, almost, when I say synthetic lemon, I mean a stronger, not like bitter lemon. I mean like a candied lemon or something like that. So actually the finish, if anything, the finish improves slightly. The nose gets the addition of those almonds, but the palate just collapses a little. So, what am I going to offer up to you as an alternative? Well, honestly, I'm not going to say Japanese, no. I am genuinely going to say, I could sort of say just pick a Speyside, to be honest with you. It's so typical of classic Speyside. And I'm literally just going to sort of cop out and say, look, once again, pick a Speyside Flora and Fauna. I'm going to go with Inchgower. It's not that long since I reviewed the Inchgower. There were, in my head, there are differences. Tasting notes were actually slightly different. I remember that. But very similar styles of whiskey, incredibly similar for two different distilleries, be they under the same ownership. But more on that at a later date. So yeah, I'm just going to offer up to you another Flora and Fauna Inchgower. I'm going to look. Let's get rid of the Inchgower. What I'm going to suggest to you: do not bypass the Flora and Fauna series if you get the opportunity. If you see it even in a bar, if you're in Scotland, somewhere nice and Speyside, beautiful area of the world, and you see a few Flora and Faunas behind the bar, pick one. Pick one. Close your eyes and point. They're good whiskey. It's the opportunity to taste in some cases, because we know that an awful lot of these distilleries owned by Diageo show up in independent bottlings now. As a matter of fact, I would suggest that most of what we know from Diageo show up in independent bottlings now. Independent bottlers don't seem to have much bother getting hold of Diageo products. Glen Spey ain't one that shows up as often. I've certainly seen the Tanninics and the Linkwoods, etc., show up more often. Glen Spey seems to be one that really, I mean, you're not going to see too many offerings out there of it. More so the Flora and Fauna. So if you're desperate to try it, this, one of the only ways you can try it. So there you go. Thank you very much for joining me. Always a pleasure. Thank you very, very much to my patrons. Should anybody wish to join that group and show the channel a little more support, the details are in the video description below. I'll be back the next time with something, I was actually going to say completely different, and I hope you can join me for that. Until then, look after yourselves. Here's to your good health. Cheers.
Hey, thanks for watching my video. Please click and subscribe to be notified of further content.